Hey guys, I'm Kalila Reynolds and it's time for Money Mondays JA, brought to you in partnership with Proven Wealth and filmed here at I Create Studio on Hope Road. So I was planning to give you my full overview of Lumber Depot's prospectus today, but the IPO literally opened and closed in 1 minute on Friday. So I've been wondering if I should still bother. What I'll do though is give you some of the broad highlights for those of you who may be wondering why it was so quick. So that's why I need to pay attention to Money Mondays JA, because I gave you the heads up about this a few weeks ago. And these days, you blink, you miss a good opportunity. Now, the fast closing wasn't a surprise to me and others who follow the industry closely. They were only seeking to raise $170 million, or about 1.2 million US, and only half of that was open to the public. So that's easy money to come by in today's business environment. Also, the lead broker and sole listing agent was Mayberry, which has gained a reputation for very successful IPOs. All we're waiting to hear now is how much it was oversubscribed by, which will of course determine the allocations, meaning how much of the shares that you applied for will you get. Now, I think it's still worthy of discussing, even though the IPO is already closed, because this is a company that will be heading to the junior market very soon. So for those of you who missed out on the IPO and are now interested, you can still buy these shares when the company lists, just that you won't necessarily get it at the IPO price. More than likely, the price is going to go up, given the clear demand for these shares. The IPO price was $1.20 Jamaican, less than 1 cent US. So a few of the highlights that would have made this company attractive to investors. Their record growth in both revenues and net profits. In the past 5 years, their revenues have grown from $734 million to $1.2 billion, or about 8.5 million US. That's growth of about 63%. And their net profits have grown even more, from 26 million to 64 million, or nearly 150%, more than double. Now, their projections are for the company to continue growing at a rate of 15% a year next year and the year after, and then slow down a bit to 10% a year. So they're projecting to grow from 1.2 billion in revenues to 2 billion by 2024, and from 64 million in net profits to 166 million by 2024. And what are they basing this on? Well, it's the industry. I always tell you guys, look at the industry. What does Lumber Depot do? They sell construction supplies, and not just lumber. Everywhere you look in Jamaica right now, what's happening? Construction. Earlier this year, the government lowered taxes on stamp duties and property tax. The Prime Minister has also given the National Housing Trust a mandate to build more houses, which they're doing. And the Bank of Jamaica has also been lowering interest rates, which means the banks are also lowering interest rates for mortgages and other things. All these are creating demand for more houses, leading to more construction. Now, Lumber Depot's main business is selling cement, steel, lumber, and paint, and to a lesser extent, plumbing and electrical supplies. According to the prospectus, the vast majority of their customers are small contractors and homeowners. They get most of their supplies locally from companies like Carib Cement, Tankweld, and Berger Paints. So I'm guessing this company is going to end up on the new Manufacturing and Distribution Index as a distribution company. So you'd be able to indirectly own shares in it via Sagicor Select's new M&D fund. Oh, and I should mention that once they list on the junior market, they'll benefit from paying no corporate income tax for the first 5 years. Another thing that makes this company attractive is its leadership. It's chaired by well-known businessman Jeffrey Hall, who's CEO of Jamaica Producers Group and sits on about 1 million boards. He's a Harvard Law School graduate. He also has a first degree in economics. Then you have Major Noel Dawes. He's the managing director, and he's been with the company since it started back in 1999. Other members of the board, well-known names: Vikram Diman, chairman of the ICD Group, attorney Simone Mayhew, Lisa Kong, and Lieutenant Commander George Overton, representing the Guardsman Group, which between Guardsman and their owner Kenny Benjamin are part of the top 10 shareholders of this company. One thing I noticed though is that this company's dividend policy is a bit vague. It just says that the board expects to pay annual dividends out of net profits available for distribution, subject to the need to maintain funds to reinvest earnings for growth and for regulatory purposes. And as for the use of the money that they've raised from the IPO, well, they're using most of it to pay off their parent company, Blue Power Group. Like I told you in a previous episode, Lumber Depot was a subsidiary of Blue Power, but they're now spinning off into a new company. They're taking over all the assets and liabilities of the old company, but since there are more assets than liabilities, they have to pay Blue Power for those assets. And this comes up to 137 of the $169 million that they've raised, some of which will be paid back later down the road. So these are some of the main things that I wanted to tell you about Lumber Depot. That's it for this edition of Money Mondays JA, brought to you by Proven Wealth and filmed at iCreate Studios. Coming up later this evening on Taking Stock, I'm going to be telling you about Jamaica's first licensed hemp farm, which just opened. And of course, we hear from the analysts on the latest stock market developments. I'm Kalila Reynolds. See you next week.